know that the Bourne Supremacy is no perfect movie. And to help me review the Bourne Supremacy today, I have invited a subscriber of mine for a while. He has his own YouTube channel called Father and Son Review Everything. Please give it up for Noah Miller.
What's up, guys? Today I'm doing a collaboration with Tyler Wolff on the Bourne Supremacy. Bourne Supremacy is the second film in the Bourne franchise. Matt Damon returns to reprise his role as Jason Bourne.
So the Bourne Supremacy takes place about 2 years after the Bourne Identity, and when an assassin played by Karl Urban frames Bourne for stealing a large sum of money and accidentally kills Marie instead of him as a way to shut him up, Bourne sets out on a mission to avenge Marie's death, and also trying to remember what he did that made CIA agent Ward Abbott, played by Brian Cox, so keen on killing him.
For me, Matt Damon was just the perfect choice as Jason Bourne. I mean, we seemed to be born for this role. I mean, it was just such a great casting choice back in the early 2000s when Bourne Identity first came out, and he just goes to another level in the Bourne Supremacy.
Now, from an acting standpoint and a writing standpoint, I think Matt Damon improves immensely as Jason Bourne. And I think it's because now that he's spent years knowing what he used to do, he's starting to have flashbacks of previous assassinations. It isn't until Marie's death where he just hits the tipping point, and he starts to show less of his everyman personality that we saw from Identity, and he begins to show this cold, darker side to him that we haven't seen from him yet. And it's refreshing and very fun in one particular scene where he calls a CIA agent named Landy and reveals that he's watching her as he's calling her. But it's also very tense when he kidnaps her associate Nikki and holds her at gunpoint so that he can get information about an assassination that he made. And on one point, we can understand his motivation because he wants to remember some of the bad things he did so that he can try to correct them. But it's also ironic in that during all of these scenes, Bourne really has the supremacy, and he has the upper hand over the agency that trained him to be who he is.
Matt Damon is great as this character. He really plays vulnerable and confused while also just sort of struggling to figure out what this training is and you know, where it came from, that whole thing. This movie also got some really good support from the likes of Brian Cox and Julia Stiles, and you know, there's others, but Brian Cox really stood out to me. I mean, I've always liked Brian Cox. He's good in everything he does, and this wasn't an exception. I mean, he was really good in this film. He was a good role player and supporting cast member. Yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about the entire cast, really, but specifically Matt Damon and Brian Cox.
The CIA and its agents are also very much portrayed much better, in my opinion. Joan Allen as Pamela Landy is very identifiable because she has a personal motive for going after Bourne. She thinks that he killed several agents that were dear to her. But if there is evidence that proves that he is innocent of those crimes, she'll take that evidence as seriously as she can, and it's nice to see a CIA agent with that sense of morality. And even though Brian Cox doesn't have much of a motivation other than he did some bad stuff in the past and he just wants to cover it up, but through Cox's performance, he always looks and sounds so slimy and despicable that you're just rooting for him to lose throughout the entire movie. And Karl Urban, I think, is very effective as the henchman of the movie, because even though he's like the other ones in that he doesn't have any dialogue, and it's meant to keep a mystery to the character, try to give a less is more vibe, what sets him apart from other henchmen is that he is pursuing Bourne from the beginning of the movie to the end, which I think makes his presence a little bit more threatening because it makes him look as if he's a genuine challenge and a worthy opponent to Bourne.
Director Paul Greengrass really nailed the slick action and the really fun chase scenes. I mean, that one really long chase scene in the movie is just, it's like demolition derby bumper cars. I mean, it's just crazy to watch. It's something like you don't really see, you hadn't seen on screen like that. But yeah, but Paul Greengrass, he also just gave this movie this really cool, dark tone to it. I mean, not that the Bourne Identity wasn't dark, but this movie sort of, to me, got just a little more grim and a little darker, and I really enjoyed that. I really thought that was a good decision to go with this franchise.
Now, Paul Greengrass directs Bourne Supremacy in a similar fashion that Doug Liman did in Bourne Identity. He uses a lot of jump cuts in order to keep the pacing fresh, but he still tells the story as visually as possible, showing through quick montages and close-ups how Bourne can formulate a plan with so little time, whether it be tracing a phone call for a SIM card or blowing up a house in order to cover his tracks. And the cinematography makes great use of POV angles or over-the-shoulder shots in order to portray how a character and us as the audience are spying on each other, whether it be like Bourne looking for a sniper rifle at the CIA agents. It really has this voyeuristic atmosphere to it. Now, sadly, some of the action scenes in this movie have way too much shaky cam. In Identity, Doug Liman at least knew when to shoot something in a wide angle and when to use a close-up so that the audience can still tell who was getting hit, where they were getting hit, and in our heads we can still follow what's going on. But in this movie, there's one particular fight where Bourne is fighting someone in their house, and the wide-angle shots last less than a second, and in the close-ups, actors are constantly going out of frame, they're shot from behind so that we can't see the hits, and it just looks so blurry and unprofessional. Now, that being said, the final car chase in this movie I think is just as good, if not better, than the chase from Identity. And I think it's because in this chase, there's more of a sense that Bourne is in danger. He gets hit multiple times, he looks as if he's in genuine pain, and other cars get hit as collateral damage, which I really think adds to the realism, too.
All in all, for me, this film is at least on par, if not surpassing, the original, The Bourne Identity. When I first saw The Bourne Identity, I really loved it. The action was just so cool and unique, and the fight scenes were just so well choreographed. And this movie is that, plus a little more, in my opinion. I mean, I think the choreography really stepped it up a notch, and they took a really good film and just went further with it, which a lot of times in sequels you see where they sort of rehash the same stuff, or they retread, which they do in this movie. I mean, this movie's sort of cut and dry, very similar to the first one, but it's just done in such a unique and cool way that you don't really notice it, at least not on the first watch. So it's sort of like they made the Bourne Identity, and to me they perfected it with the Bourne Supremacy. Between the visceral, grim feel to the unexpected murder of Marie in this movie, I just think it took the whole franchise and everything to a new level. Though it hasn't reached the potential that the first two films have in a while, I'm really hoping Bourne brings this franchise back to where it was before, and it brings it back with a bang. If not a bang, at the very least, a real nice magazine shot to the head.
Overall, not all the action scenes in Bourne Supremacy are strictly coherent, but when they are, they're very gritty, they don't feel overly choreographed, and they're a lot of fun to watch. And the characters are backed up by good performances and very identifiable motivations, which I think makes for one of the few sequels that are just as good, if not better, than the original. And for that reason, I'm going to give the Bourne Supremacy a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and very special thank you to Noah Miller from Father and Son Review Everything. I put a link in the description below to his channel. Definitely check him out. Definitely subscribe. And be sure to like and subscribe and check out my other reviews at NoPerfectMovie.com. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care.